good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you, you thirsty bunch of beer drinkers, whenever and wherever you're tuning in from. We have a great show lined up for you today. Jennifer Tamse, the director of Beer and Beverage with the Charcoal Group, the business behind Beertown, a chain of excellent beer restaurants across Ontario, is here with us. As you'll hear in the show, I've had the pleasure to know and work with Jenn for 12 years or so, and I greatly admire what she's accomplished during that time. She is one of the most knowledgeable beer people in the country and is very passionate about the wonderful liquid that brings so many people together. Get her talking about beer, and the smile quickly follows and doesn't fade, which is why it's exciting to have her here today. We'll find out how she discovered beer and what it really means to her. We'll discuss her role with Beertown, the history behind Beertown, and find out what it's like to be knighted. Okay. Now that I've laid all that out there, let's crack a Sunnyside Session IPA, the beer we want to get into, Beertown, and get right into it with Jenn Tamse. But first, a word from our sponsors.
Toronto's Festival of Beer returns to Bandshell Park at Exhibition Place between July 26th and 28th. Come to TFOB and enjoy the best of beer and beverage, showcasing over 400 varieties of products, the best of bites, eats, treats, and more. And the best beats on the Bandshell stage, including headliners Cypress Hill, Josh Ross, Taking Back Sunday, all rocking the Bandshell stage. Don't judge, just enjoy. TFOB, July 26th to 28th. Tickets available at beerfestival.ca.
Welcome to Between Two Fermenters, Jenn.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So I'm in the presence of an honorary knight. Can I still call you Jenn, or do you go by something else now?
You can call me sir from forevermore.
Yeah. There's a beer in front of you there, Jenn. I did have a Sunnyside for you, but I cracked it and I'm drinking it. But we have one of our most admired beers in our portfolio, the Absacker, the Helles that we collabed on with Brewery Rittmeyer from 1422. So they taught us a thing or two about brewing nice German lagers.
I love this beer. I'm very excited.
There we go. The nice snap. Okay, audio producer, was that good? Yeah, there we go. So Jenn, you and I, we go way back to APK Live, the days in London, Ontario. I was a rep back then with Great Lakes, and we did some work together. And I was in preparation for this. And when I say preparation, I was putting a couple notes together, but I was looking for pictures of APK Live to see if we had one together. But I found one of my wife serving beer to John Jenkinson, who went on to become a brewer in this industry. But it was at APK. It was one of the beer festivals that we did there. And it's one of my favorite pictures of her. She just looks so happy, and she doesn't even drink beer. But anyway, that's, I wanted to point that out.
That is amazing. Oh my gosh. And small world, John Jenkinson. I later re-met, I think I had seen him at APK, didn't know who he was. And then him and I ended up taking some graduate courses together in philosophy at the University of Western Ontario. So
I'm not sure where John's at today. I know he was at a couple different breweries. He was at Folly, and then he was at Indie Ale House. Yeah. I'm not sure where he's at now, but John, if you're listening, how you doing, buddy? After APK, you moved over to Beertown after a little bit.
I did.
And you started working on the beer program. We got to work together again. We had beer in the three locations that opened way back in the early days. And I say all this because it's been great to see you succeed so brilliantly in this industry over the years. And I'm really excited to sit down today and ask you all the questions I've had for a while now. So let's start with the first big one. Do people still refer to you as the Beer Czar?
They do. And it's a funny little title that I think that people don't really fully understand, nor do I myself. I was on a trip to Belgium with a bunch of wonderful importers there. It was my first time going overseas with people from the industry, importers, kind of when I had just started with Beertown. And needless to say, I was so stoked for this trip that I did so much research. I obviously knew a lot about Belgian beer, having that been sort of my foray into the beer world. And while I was there, I kind of ended up taking a leadership role in getting all the other restaurant peeps to check out not only the breweries that we were there to see, but other breweries as well, little hot spots, Cantillon in Brussels.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, no, never heard of that at all, right? So I quickly just was given that title. I'm not even sure by who. I think maybe the CEO of Hugo Brewery at the time, and it sort of just stuck. So some people still call me that to this day.
And did that help morph into this role that you have now? Or because we're going to get to the Beertown role soon, but is that kind of where it came from?
A little bit. I would say I was sort of already stepping into the role.
Okay.
And then the title came thereafter. When I started with Beertown, it was actually just on a part-time basis. I was just serving there. I knew Beertown London was going to be opening up, was really, really stoked about it, had done some research on the charcoal group, and was still in school. I had gone back to school after APK Live, had, a wealth of experience bartending and serving, but also doing the management and ownership of APK. And I just wanted to go back to the roots of like serving and being in front of guests and seeing what they had to say about beer. And to have a company like Charcoal Group come in, open Beertown at the time that they were, which was sort of the height of this craft beer revolution, was just so exciting. So I jumped on board just to be there on a part-time basis. And I guess I had a reputation for knowing a lot about beer, and that's sort of how my journey started with the Charcoal Group.
There we go. So we're going to get into the Charcoal Group and the Beertown, but I want to take you all the way back to before APK. What turned you on to beer? Like what made you say, I love this beverage and I want to do a career or have a career in beer? Was there that, or?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say there was. I grew up in London, Ontario. Was a huge nerd in high school. Was friends with a lot of the people on the trivia team. Reach for the top. Our school actually did really, really well. And was friends with a lot of really nerdy guys and gals. And so we would once in a while, in our most rebellious way possible that nerds can do, would crack like one beer and share it together.
Nice.
I had the distinct privilege of I mean, don't know if I should be disclosing this to listeners, but going down to Marienbad after a Reach for the Top practice and trying a Belgian beer that,
Was
the
this a
five
bar?
of us
Sorry?
shared. Yes,
It was a bar
in London,
underage?
Ontario.
Okay.
Oh.
That probably still happens in London.
And I don't know if the timelines perfectly line up, but Milos of Milos Craft Beer Emporium, I think, was managing the portfolio there at the time.
Oh,
he
yeah?
wasn't there that day. Not that I'm sure I would remember. But I had a Belgian quad, a Trappist Belgian quad. And I just remember, maybe it's an odd style to try something that isn't that American adjunct lager, but I just remember being blown away by the amount of flavor, the aromas in the liquid. I had no conception that beer could be anything but an American adjunct lager. That's what I thought that beer was. I think that's what a lot of laymen think that beer was. Like, kudos to the big brewers for, creating that sort of reputation for beer in the US, because they did such a solid job of doing that after Prohibition. But it just redefined what beer could be for me. And it was at that moment that I wanted to learn more. And of course, that was a really great way to kind of nerd out, because that style of beer, and the Belgians in particular, have a rich history of brewing beer and sort of being renegades, and that they wouldn't just use those four basic ingredients in beer. And that kickstarted my journey.
Do you remember what the beer was? Which one? Like what quad?
This makes me sound sort of silly, but I don't. I don't. I think, and when I were teaching people at Beertown about beer, I've, gone back, looked at the training programs in terms of trying to figure out how to build those building blocks. And, when I didn't know a lot about beer back then, it was hard to remember what a beer was. Now for me, if I look at a list, it's just like bam, 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 bam. I can probably index off over 4,000 beers in Canada, no problem. But that's because I've got that network of knowledge in my head.
And then why did you guys choose a quad? Was it you went in and like, oh, that has a lot of alcohol in it, let's get that one? Or
it was that it was Trappist. It was that it was Trappist, and this idea of monks brewing beer and during Lenten fasts. And I think I'm not sure, but we were talking about that for some sort of reason. And somebody else in the group actually knew quite a bit about beer at that time. And then I should add too that, I didn't grow up with a ton of money. So it was also that beer was really cost accessible. I could actually buy something and afford to buy it and try various different beers at the kickstart of craft beer starting to become popular in Ontario, and do it with still having some money in my pocket to buy lunch.
Or another quad. For
yes,
sure.
Exactly.
So you can boil it down to that particular moment that you knew beer was something special and something to behold. And it was at that time that you're like, whatever I do in life, I want beer involved, or did that come
I think that sort of came after. I didn't think, not to genderize it, but I think still at that point, like as a woman, I didn't really think that, there was maybe a place for me in the industry. But certainly I loved hospitality. And I think it was a sort of the coalition of that being at the right place in time where, Great Lakes was out there. I got to start having beers from Wellington Brewery. I made my way up to Guelph at some point and had my first cask conditioned beer at Woolly Pub. And so it was sort of the interactions, the stories that followed, the people that I met in beer that sort of started to convince me that I could make a career of it.
And so now you're the director of beer and beverage with the Charcoal Group. So tell us about the role and how, so you kind of already started and how you got there, but you're doing that now and you've been doing it for a number of years. Tell us about the role and what it entails.
Oh my gosh. Well, the role has evolved. It continues to evolve. And despite, aside from the fact that I also work with some incredible people, some incredible minds, the evolution of the role, the evolution of beer, the evolution of the industry is kind of what's kept me there. So my role now is a little bit different. Certainly I spend a lot of time kind of focusing on the financials and making sure we're setting budgets for our restaurants to keep us in business so that we can continue to grow and continue to purchase beer from, our friends, and do it in a way that's sustainable for the industry and for us. But day to day, it's kind of overarching. I set the strategic vision for the beer, wine, and spirits portion of our businesses for all 18 of our restaurants. So that encompasses Beertown. But then, of course, we've got a steakhouse. We've got a couple of cocktail focused bars. And then I work with importers. I work with craft breweries to kind of scout out what we want to pour next and curate those portfolios. But then I also spearhead the training programs, and I'm quite involved in operations, and that we're still quite small and nimble. So, my day consists of going to various Beertown locations and checking in with the teams, making sure that basically the framework that we've laid out for them is setting them up for success to be able to sell our beer portfolios and our wine portfolios and our spirits portfolios in a way that's going to get people excited about what we're doing.
And you just mentioned you work with craft brewers and now wineries, I guess, and cideries and craft breweries. And so walk me through your decision-making process, because just on the beer side, over 340 craft breweries in this province, it must be tough to kind of like, hey, we want to redo the beer menu. How do we go about doing this? Or is it simpler than what I'm thinking in my head? No,
I mean, the part of my job that I dislike the most is having to say no. And, we're so fortunate to be living in a time and a place where there is just this proliferation of people that want to work in beer, that are able to open their own breweries. And so, that process is, I guess, an intersection of, finding great partners that are actually able to keep up with the volume demand that we need. Number one, that are willing to kind of work and grow with us and be nimble in the ways that we need as we continue to open new locations, finding partners with good stories. Of course, the quality of the beer has to be there. And then honoring partnerships that we already had. And then also what's really important for us is making sure that we have a good representation stylistically on our menus. So of course we know that, Belgian strong ales or saisons may not sell as well as, your prototypical German style Pilsner or your New England style IPA, but we want to make sure that those styles are represented. Same goes, like we pour a Flanders red ale full time. And certainly that's not going to sell by volume in comparison to even say something like the Great Lakes Pampas Ass that we have on Nitro. But it's important that we have that so that we can sort of juxtapose it against something like Fruit Jelly King from Bellwoods and show our guests just how different sour beers can be, as an example. So it's an intersection of a bunch of different things. Of course, we have a rotational program with Beertown, and that really allows us to rotate through, hundreds of partners in Canada and beyond, to be able to pour not just, 40 or represent 40 different craft breweries, but many, many more.
And Burst is on right now. We were talking with on the way over.
Yeah,
it was tasting delicious at the Beertown Etobicoke.
Yeah.
So you said, you're in the finance stuff and you're setting the vision, and the role director of beer and beverages is more than just curating the beer lineup. So tell us about some of the other things that are crucially important to executing the beer experience.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And thank you actually for circling back to this and asking me, because I think I sort of gloss over by just saying, I'm curating a list, but there's no point in having a beer list if you don't have dispensing systems that do it properly. Right. So one thing that I've really prided myself in, and the Charcoal Group in, is that, is designing our draft beer systems along with our, partners to dispense beer properly, dispense it in a way that is going to lend itself to allowing us to flip our draft beer lines quite regularly. So the design of the systems, inventory management is key. Even something like deposit management, making sure that we're getting our kegs back to our brewery partners in a timely fashion, but also getting those returns back. Any Beertown is carrying upwards of $7,000 in just deposits at any given time.
Wouldn't it be great if deposits just went away?
Yeah, I think it would, but I understand that.
Yeah,
I understand
we have
why some people have them in place. Like, I've seen restaurants, and ours included, where we're sitting on a lot of empty kegs and full kegs at that. And those kegs, that's stainless steel, costs a lot of money. I don't have to tell you that. So on one hand, it'd be easier if it didn't exist, but it's fine that it does. And we're going to do our damned best to make sure that we have a system where we can receive, send that stuff back, that we're open to feedback and criticism when needed to make sure that we're managing it properly, but that also we're getting those dollars back and getting the kegs back to our partners. And then there's the brand development piece. Like, I work with our marketing team quite heavily. We do a Collaboration Nation series where sort of every quarter we reach out to a different brewery. In fact, we did a collab, as you know, Troy, with you guys. And we have a line dedicated to that. And then, as well, just finding different ways to leverage the listing of our beers. So we have a partnership with Untapped that I manage. We actually reached out before they even had beer lists listed online anywhere for restaurants, which is really cool. And so I would say that's the day-to-day, in addition to just the curation of the lists.
But I imagine education is a big thing, and
it is.
I mentioned that you were, in my view, one of the most knowledgeable beer people in this country. So taking what you know and as the director, you're getting that information and you're the one providing education to all the staff?
I am. Of course, now with 10 Beertown locations, I'm not the one that's heading up every single beer academy that we do. So really, my role has changed in that I'm trying to train our leaders, our beverage managers and our general managers to be able to kind of understand and appreciate beer in the way that I do and impart that knowledge to our teams. So we have partnered with Cicerone. All of our general managers and beverage managers go through their Cicerone level 1 beer server test, but we do the training internally. And recently, I mean, it sounds a bit corporate, but we did partner with this tech company called Exonify to create this new e-learning platform to onboard all of that beer knowledge there, as well as all of the other pieces that come to successfully operating a restaurant. It's not just about the beer. It's, the service elements, the food elements, the fact that we go out of our way to really make our guests feel welcome, and we're welcoming them into a space as friends and not just customers. So I put together the programs for that e-learning platform, and then I'm working with the team on adding videos, finding ways to make the content more interesting, and constantly blasting out questionnaires and information to the staff on upcoming brews.
I love that stuff, and I don't think that's corporate. That's just good management, and I think that's something that is only going to empower staff to learn more and then take it out to the customers and live it.
Yeah, that's just it. And like with every Beertown Open that we've done, I have had the pleasure of hosting the first Beer Academy for all our new hires. Usually we're looking at about a front of house contingent with our hosts of upwards of 60 to 100 staff. So, for all the opens we've done, I've been there, I've hosted that, and it's been personally so incredibly rewarding to see their own personal beer journeys. Like we're talking about, we don't hire staff for their beer knowledge. We hire staff for their mindset, their willingness to work as a team, their excitement about working in the restaurant industry, of just being great servers and great bartenders and great
humans.
hosts. Great humans, right? Great people. And we truly believe that we can teach them about the beer. We can teach them about the culinary program. We can teach them about our own particular service elements. So, I've had beer academies that I've hosted where I'm putting an IPA or, a dry hop sour in front of a staff member for the first time. And, various types of feedback, staff that have been like, what is this? It's so bitter. I don't understand. That then a year later are obsessed with IPAs and are going over to Great Lakes and are going over to Third Moon and going over to Bellwoods to get like the haziest thing that they can find. And that's been really rewarding, just to be able to see that sort of development in them and that excitement. And in fact, some of them have gone on to have careers in the beer industry. Maybe they've left us to become sales reps, or they're working in a tap room, which is always for us a story of success.
Well, we've got 2 of them working for us right now.
You do?
Actually, we do.
Yeah.
So let's move over to Beertown and talk a bit about the history of the locations. But I wanted to start with this. On the website, Beertown says, the leaders in the craft beer dining revolution. And I love big, bold visions and statements like that. That's I love it. I think knowing Beertown, it really personifies what I think of Beertown as.
Thank you.
So tell me a bit what that line means to you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, and I do want to attribute that to our fearless leader, Jody Pelabisky, who first conceived of Beertown back in, I think, 2009, when he was reading some sort of article about the birth of the modern beer bar. And he's a visionary himself. Him and I get along really well because I'm sort of a theorist at heart, and I like big ideas and I like seeing ideas come to life. And he's just one of those people that's a dreamer, right? So he had this idea.
Well, I think you have to to open so many restaurants, but yeah.
I think you have to. I think you have to open the sorts of restaurants that we're opening,
yes.
right? And ones that maybe at the time when we opened it was a bigger risk to do what we did. Of course, right now, Beertown makes a lot of sense. It has a time and a place. But when he first conceived of Beertown, and I think Beertown Cambridge opened in 2012.
2012, yeah.
It was still, it was pretty early days. Like there was a lot, it was a lot happening in the industry. People were really excited, but it was still pretty early on. So what does that mean to me? Sorry to circle back. It means so many things. It means that we are continuing to try and push the boundaries when it comes to the service of well-crafted beer. Craft beer is obviously a contentious term, and it's constantly sought redefinition. But for me, craft beer is well-crafted beer, whether it's from a bigger partner, a smaller partner, somebody overseas, or somebody within our own backyard. And so it's serving it well, but knowing that our restaurant is not just about beer. It's about revolutionizing service and the service and dining experience that comes along with that.
Yeah, I think we share that particular vision and goal. We like to say at Grey Lakes that it's memorable experiences that with each sip and each interaction. It's not always about the sale. It's about making a friend and a regular consumer. And it sounds through that vision and sounds what you're saying is that is similar to the Beertown approach.
Very, very similar. Yeah, we're not there for a quick sale. We're not there to get guests in and out of our restaurants and turn checks. We're there to curate an experience that's going to be unforgettable. In fact, within our company, we have this term called MOT, which means moment of truth. And every Monday, we encourage all of our general managers and beverage managers to email in 1 to 2 moments of truth that they created throughout the week. And a moment of truth is basically a moment where you see an opportunity to go above and beyond for whether it's a staff member, a brewery partner, a distillery partner, or a guest. And so this will range from anything like, somebody really wanted a gluten-free beer, but they didn't want Glutenberg, so blonde. So we ran over and got them something else that's outside of our regular portfolio, to, a longtime guest who, is facing a really tough medical diagnosis, and we send our team out to the hospital to actually visit them. Yeah.
Unreasonable Hospitality. Have you read that book?
I haven't yet, but you are the third person to recommend it to me.
Beautiful book. It is great. And it sounds exactly what's in that book, what you guys are doing. So that's something to be proud of. How many locations? We have Waterloo, Cambridge, London, Guelph, Toronto, Barrie, Newmarket, Oakville, glorious Etobicoke, Burlington, and then you have 2 coming soon, right?
We have 2 coming soon. So yeah, that's 10 locations. I think you listed every one of them. Do you list London?
I listed London, but London number 2 is coming in the fall.
London number 2 is coming in the fall. We should be open by late October, early November, and that'll be the south in the south of London for those who know anything about London. So kind of up by White Oaks Mall. Our current location there is in North London, up by Masonville Mall. And then actually ahead of that, we have a location opening up in Whitby, and it's coming fast and furious. We should be open just after August long weekend.
I think you're doing, like, anyone listening that's looking for a job in Whitby, I think there's a job fair coming up next week.
There is actually Wednesday through to Saturday, I believe.
There you go.
Yeah. So and I'll probably be there one of the days. I'm also hosting a meeting with all of our fantastic beverage managers on Wednesday up in Toronto. So, but the team's so excited. We've already hired almost the entire management team so that we can get ahead on training them, and I'll be taking them through some Cicero training.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Yeah.
So in a time when bars and restaurants are hurting so much, we hear about it all the time. We sell to these bars and restaurants all across the province. How can and how does the Charcoal Group just keep growing? And is there a secret sauce?
I'm not sure I can reveal the secret sauce.
Or is it just everything that you've explained? This is just a well-run company that knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's the coalition of so many little different things. And it's like, it's in the details. Details are super, super important to our entire leadership team. It's something that we train our general managers and beverage managers on. I talked a little bit about inventory management earlier when it comes to actually managing our beer, wine, and spirits inventory. That's something we do on the weekly. But yeah, I think it's all of those things. It's hospitality from the heart. It's going out of our way for our guests, and it's managing every single line of our profit and loss statements to make sure that we're looking very critically on the weekly at everything that we're doing.
But it's not just beer. It's not just the service. You have a killer food program, in my opinion, too.
We do.
The Yucatan Bowl. Oh, my God. So it's a true story. When Etobicoke opened, Etobicoke Beertown, for the first probably 2 months, we were in there at least 2 times a week. Mm-hmm. And the staff at Great Lakes, we'd hold meetings there. We'd go. We were there for the soft opening. And I think I've ate the Yucatan Bowl since it opened probably 20 to 30 times out of 20 to 30 times I've been there. So I had something different for the first time yesterday. I had. But anyway, you're known for the food too. And let's tie it back into beer after you talk about maybe the food program, but how easy is it to curate a beer lineup and make those pairings with what's coming out of the kitchen?
Yeah. So I have to shout out our corporate executive chef Todd Claremont.
And just an FYI, his favorite beer is Sunnyside Session IPA.
It still is. I talked to him about this just last week, and he's constantly looking out every year to see when it's being released. And I've, I think he has a reputation alongside me for reaching out to the Great Lakes team and saying, "Hey, can we buy a few cases from you just to keep Chef happy?" So he himself comes from a bit of a beer background. Previously affiliated with Indie Ale House, had worked alongside them for.
He was the chef there.
Yeah, he was the chef there, and then has a long culinary history prior to that. So when he came on board, I think really had a vision for how to kind of take our dining program and make it even more scratch made than it was. Also, we really pride ourselves in having a fully fledged vegan program and gluten-free or gluten-friendly program for our guests, and doing it in a way that doesn't compromise kind of the flavor, and making sure that it accurately reflects the rest of the regular non-vegan menu as well. So that's really important to us. Management of that is really important, making sure that the staff are well-versed. It's not just about having beer and being a space for people that like beer. It's about being a great restaurant that just happens to serve good beer alongside everything else. And if we're going to do the beer right, we have to do the food right. Absolutely no exceptions.
Now, I don't know if you like me referring to Beertown as a chain, but let's say the group of restaurants, Beertown group. When you think of places like I don't want to say too many names, but different concepts that have multiple locations. When you think of food, you think of frozen food coming out, deep fried food. And I think that's what really sets Beertown apart from many of these places. They have multiple locations, but when you go in, you're getting really good food with really good beer poured from very clean lines by people that know how to pour the beer and talk about the beer. And so you're putting that all together with a smiley face and customer service, and that is your secret sauce.
That is the secret sauce. Go. Man, Troy, I'm blushing over here. I'm sure if Chef Todd is listening and Mike Hodgson as well, he is too. Yeah. Because those guys have to do a scratch made menu with 10 locations, soon to be 12. Now, it is not easy. It is engineered, and our lines are engineered. Our actual food lines, our stations are broken out. They have spent years making sure that we can operate that successfully. So,
it's working, and Wagyu hot dog coming back soon. So let's get into this honorary night knighthood. Is it knighthood? I mentioned it already at the top, but you've got a pretty cool acknowledgement in your back pocket when you were in Montreal for Mondial de la Bière.
Yes.
So care to tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. Words still can't. I'm kind of in shock, just because it is a real honor. It's a real honor for myself, but it's a real honor for everybody who works for Beertown and everyone who works for the Charcoal Group, because certainly I would not have received that honor if it had not been for the opportunities I've been given from the people that I work with and I work for. So June 25th, I went to Mondial de la Bière.
May 25th.
May 25th. It's not even June yet.
In the future, she is going...
In the future, fast forward. But yes, I was dubbed an honorary beer knight by the Confederation of Belgian Brewers. They are one of the oldest professional associations in the world. They still reside in sort of their guild house in the heart of Grand Place, and the Grand Place, which is in the center of Brussels.
Have you been there before?
I have.
Yeah, I've been there too. It's pretty cool.
It's gorgeous. And actually every September they host a beer festival, which is one of my favorites in that it's not as big as some of the North American beer festivals that I've attended. But, they're so particular about their glassware there that every single beer you get comes in its own distinct 5-ounce tasting glass, and there's something really special about that.
And that's in the Grand Place too,
it's
right?
in the heart of the Grand Place. Yeah, it's definitely an event that I would, not every brewery from Belgium is represented there. I think the Confederation of Belgian Brewers is an interesting one in that it is a group of family-owned breweries that have been around for generations. But yeah, they awarded me this knighthood basically for the work that I've done for many of the breweries that are represented in that group. I work with a lot of great importers in Ontario, Horizon Premium Imports and McClellan being the two big ones. And we are one of the largest purchasers of Belgian beer in Canada. We have been for a very long time. It's been important to us to promote Belgian beer alongside of a lot of great beer from many other places. And they wanted to recognize myself for that. So pretty cool.
Very cool. And the CEO, Jody, he also got one a couple of years ago too?
He did. Yes. Yeah. And that was actually over in Belgium. So, one thing that I have always loved about the beer industry, and it seems to not just be unique to the Ontario market, is that, on one hand, Ontario craft brewers are sort of competing against one another, but you would never know it because they all work together. I know some smaller breweries that purchase hops together to get a better price on their hops, and that's the same with the Belgian brewers. So they came over to Canada to knight me to basically promote Belgian beer as a category.
It's amazing. And the late Bill White, he was the only other person that I know of that went through that. And he would tell the story over and over about his knighthood there. So the congratulations, well deserved, well earned.
So
and that's a pretty cool thing to put on your resume.
Yeah, thank you.
For sure. Let's shift gears and talk about the state of the industry, the beer industry. So as part of your role and your continuous thirst for knowledge, that's trademarked, sorry, Roger. You are plugged into the beer industry and get to see and hear what's going on in the market from a lot of different voices, like you said earlier. What are your current thoughts on the state of things in the beer world here in Ontario?
That is a big question, my friend. That's a loaded question too. I mean, I could approach this in so many different ways. Certainly, it feels like there has been a shift in trends. And we're definitely seeing it in our restaurants. There's maybe a few less people buying beer than, I'd say at the height of things, which would have been, 7 odd years ago, 5 odd years ago. And more of a demand for RTDs as an example, which you see in retail. In fact, I made sure that we added lines when we did this because it was really important to me that we kept beer on all the lines that we had promised to our partners, but we now pour 2 kegged cocktails at our restaurants. So there has been a little bit of a shift, and I don't really know how to feel or what to make of it because I love beer so much. But I do know that, craft breweries have been really adaptable in sort of shifting themselves. There's now a lot of great retail spaces. You guys, in fact, opened your downtown Toronto location. There's more small breweries getting into that have reached out to me for consultation on opening their own kitchens and this sort of localization of really making their spaces neighborhood spaces, which I think has been really cool to see. There's a time and a place for that. So I don't know if I'm sidestepping the question.
No, that's a segment of a question.
Yeah.
But so you mentioned trends, and everyone talks about RTDs and how they're starting to eat, our lunch. I think they've taken the biggest bite out of cider and wine. I've been around long enough to, remember the Bud Light Lime years, the Coors Light Iced Tea years, where beer was threatened, like real traditional beer was threatened with, everyone's going to be doing Bud Light Lime and everyone's drinking this and it's the beer. And then all of a sudden it reverted back to what it was before.
Yeah.
It kind of ebb and flows, the peaks and valleys. And I think we're going to get back there. But when it comes to styles, beer styles, what are you seeing in popularity right now?
Yeah, totally. And just to circle back as well, when I say that, beer purchasing has maybe declined a bit and we've seen that, it doesn't mean to say that the industry isn't here to stay. It's strong. We're still opening locations and despite the fact that I say we do more than beer, we are called Beertown Public House. It is literally in the name of our restaurant. So we are in fact investing in the fact that beer is something that has been served for centuries and has been consumed and brings people together. And I think the Ontario industry still has a lot of growth on the horizon. It's just that, as you said, it's going to ebb and flow. And so I'm excited about that. But yeah, styles, seeing a lot. Speaking of ciders, I think there's a lot of great wine cider hybrids out there that we've been pouring. Obviously, near beer or alcohol-free beer is becoming huge. And in fact, I'm seeing in our sales mixes that those non-alcoholic beers are actually being bumped up into the top 20, which is huge for us as a bottled or a canned product. Our non-alcoholic cocktails are now in our top 10. And so that illustrates to me that people still want to partake in beer. They still want to partake in the culture that comes along with sharing a really fine beverage, even if it doesn't have alcohol in it, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah, I think the sober curious people have the people behind all the movement have done a really good job of selling non-alcs as the healthier alternative lifestyle, yet still being within the beer category. There's a reason we don't see a lot of these craft breweries have non-alcs on tap. It just it costs way too much to make it properly. And I'm not saying they're not making it properly, but
no,
it's not. They're not distilling the vacuum distillation of the alcohol. So it's something we haven't dabbled in because we want to keep our eye laser focused on the bread and butter of our business is making and selling the freshest, best beer in the province.
Yeah, totally.
So what do you think the next big thing is? Not related to non-alcs and RTDs in the beer category.
In terms of styles specifically?
Styles are just the next big thing in beer.
My gosh. I didn't prepare myself for this. I think we're going to continue to see the evolution of the IPA. I think that's huge. I mean, it's bonkers to me that the hazy IPA or the New England IPA or double IPA versions of that have only really been around for about a decade. Maybe not even that.
Was one of the first ones.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that we're going to continue to see ideation in that category. And then I think breweries are already taking up this space. They did that last summer, but we're going to continue to see really well-made, crisp, classic lagers. And in fact, I'm drinking Absacker right now. And to me, that goes to show that breweries don't have to feel like they're reinventing the wheel anymore. They don't have to put the craziest ingredients into their beer, or push the boundaries when it comes to like, just making this triple hazy hop bomb. Like, they can just experiment and be bold by returning to classic styles and doing it well. And regular consumers now understand what small breweries are doing enough and understand beer styles enough to be open-minded about that and to be excited about it.
Well said. We put a core focus on our team 2 years ago to go back to year-round brands. Our focus on core brands when we're out there selling to LCBO beer store, grocery, and we've had a 7% growth in just the 5 big core brands across the market. We're seeing more and more people going back. They're still buying the seasonals and the specialty one-offs, but they're going back, and when I say bulk, I mean they're just purchasing more of things like our Great Lakes Premium Lager, Canuck Pale Ale, Octopus Wants to Fight, so on and so forth.
Exactly.
So you've nailed it. So I got one more question before we get into the rapid fire.
Sure.
So I mentioned, we've talked about it. You've accomplished so much over the last 12 years in this industry. So I'm curious, what's next for you?
Oh my gosh. I'm going to continue to do what I feel I do best, which is keep my head to the ground, support this constant evolution of Beertown, support our teams in continuing to open Beertown, and make sure that we do it right and we do it in a way that pays homage to the people that keep our doors open, which is our staff and our beverage partners, our brewery partners. So
I said earlier that when you talk about beer, you smile. So you have been, but when you talk about people and the staff at Beertown, you smile when you do that as well too, just to point that out to you.
Oh, thank you.
Nice. Okay, we're going to hear an ad and then we're going to come back to rapid fire. Hang tight.
There appears to be only one line on this sheet. $50 for a case of Great Lakes Premium Lager. That's it? That's the ad? Okay. Cases of Great Lakes Premium Lager are only $50 every day of the year.
All right, we're back with rapid fire, but hearing that ad, don't you just want to pick up a case of Great Lakes Lager for only $50? Yeah, you do. Okay, Bobo over at Shortfinger, he texted me today and said, "Take it easy on Tamse." So,
he also told me "F you."
Oh yeah, all right, Bobo.
He said, "Troy, when am I getting my invite to this podcast?"
Well, it's funny because as soon as I got the text, I was talking to some teammates and I said, "Oh, I should have Bobo on the show and tell all the stories when he used to work at Great Lakes about all the times he got in trouble." With the owner and all the shenanigans he did and all the shit he pulled. I got a lot of stories about him in my back pocket.
Well, I did promise him I would shout out our upcoming collab. So him and I have been working on a collab. We'll be launching at Beertown in a couple of short weeks, and we are bringing Saison back, baby.
Awesome. Saison?
Yeah.
Like straight up Saison?
It's an Americanized version of a Saison, so it's been dry hopped with Citra.
Okay.
Yeah,
Citra. Amazing.
Yeah.
I look forward to that. Not so much the Bobo interaction. Okay, rapid fire. What beer have you been enjoying recently?
Oh, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. I'm drinking a lot of Third Moon beers. Bone Tree, Bone Pine, which is our collab, and that's just simply what's in my fridge.
Okay, Bibo and Bobo.
All the bees.
All the bees.
Beer babes and Bibos and Bobos.
What's been the most challenging aspect of your job?
I'm making sure that I don't know. It's also fun and easy, and but I would say people.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Name your celebrity doppelganger.
Michael Jackson, but the beer redder.
Okay. All right. Name a person that inspires you.
Simone de Beauvoir.
That was fast.
That was very fast.
Best time and place for a beer.
Time and place doesn't matter. It's about the people and the beer.
Oh, very good. Best hangover cure.
Ooh, I would say Tums.
And when is Sunnyside coming to the Beertown. I'm just joking. Thanks, Jenn, for being on the show today. And everyone at Great Lakes wishes a healthy and happy, successful summer to you and the folks at Beertown. And I hope Todd gets his sunny side soon. Jenn, honestly, it was a great conversation today. Awesome. I had a lot of fun.
I had a lot of fun too. Thank you so much. This was such an honor.
Well, it's great that we can make this happen, and congrats on the beer with Bobo, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Cheers. Cole's Notes. It's time to hear from our man in the lab, Cole Raiskums, in another edition of his Cole's Notes. He's back after sitting out the last episode, which we got to talk to in a performance review, and he'll be diving into how to properly taste beer and I understand that he'll be offering some tips and tricks on how to look and sound smart when describing beer to your friends. Take it away, Cole.
Thanks, Troy. Moving takes a little while. But anyway, hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Cole's Notes. In addition to ensuring the consistency and safety of our beer, one of my other roles here at the brewery is actually conducting sensory analysis, aka tasting the beer. And today we're going to talk about how we taste our beer and give you some tips on how to sound really smart and potentially pretentious when telling your friends about your favorite brew. So before we start, get a clean, clear glass that will fit the whole beer. It's important that you don't taste out of a can, as it's blinding many of your important senses when you do this. When conducting sensory analysis, I like to break it down into 5 categories: appearance, aroma, taste, mouthfeel, and aftertaste. Appearance is the color and the clarity of the beer, but we also look at the density and dispersion of the head. Aroma is the variety of smells that you get from the beer. These can range from fruity hop aromas to sweet malt aromas to spicy yeast aromas. Next, we finally get to drink the beer and assess the taste. This differs from aroma in that we're measuring the sweetness, bitterness, sourness, and a variety of other qualities of the beer. Mouthfeel is a bit of an abstract concept. Imagine your tongue is your thumb running across a surface, which is the beer in this case. How does that feel? And lastly, we think about the aftertaste, which is simply how the beer lingers after we're done swallowing. And now that we've tasted the beer, how do we describe it? The words that we choose are very important. We use words such as straw and crimson to describe the color instead of yellow and brown, partly due to the negative connotation of the latter, but also to be more evocative. We use more specific descriptors. The aroma is not just orange, it's the pith of an orange. If you relate the sensations to a memory or an experience, it's more interesting and memorable. The lager has aromas of a warm morning dew evaporating off of a field of geraniums. Congratulations, you're now a beer poet. Who knew that science could taste so good?
Well, thank you, pretentious Cole. Cole runs one hell of a sensory program with the staff at Great Lakes, and yes, it does make us all a little smarter. There's only one fella, Cole, you got to work on, and that's Fabian Skidmore. No drinking out of a can. Thanks for doing this, Cole, and welcome back.
Yeah, thank you so much, Troy. Take
Cheers.
care.
Hey guys, it's Sadie here from Great Lakes Brewery with some really exciting news coming for you this summer. We're happy to announce that on August 24th, we're going to throw our first ever large-scale craft beer fest right here in beautiful South Etobicoke. It's called Brewed for You Fest with 20 plus breweries and cideries, some of our closest pals in the industry. We're excited to have Shannock Road doing an amazing Celtic rock set, as well as my personal favorite, a 90s throwback set by the band Discman. Brewed for You Fest here at Great Lakes Brewery on August 24th. Go to greatlakesbeer.com for details.
Around the industry.
So what's happened around the industry over the last couple of weeks? We talked with Scott Simmons a lot in the last episode about the rollout of the new modern beer marketplace, going to convenience stores, big grocery store chains doing 30 packs, 24 packs, et cetera, et cetera. You can find that in the last episode right under this one. But the LCBO and the AGCO, the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, have been holding webinars for convenience stores, grocery stores, and breweries to better understand the new retail model that is coming and coming fast to Ontario. It's going to be bananas over the summer as everyone navigates the choppy waters of this roller coaster of a rollout. If you're interested, you can go to doingbusinesswiththelcbo.com or agco.ca to look at the slides and all the information that has been shared so far. Some pretty fun reading. And speaking of reading, if you're looking for something to put you to sleep tonight, head over to Google and punch in MOF, as in Frank, MOF, Early Implementation Agreement. It's the document that the government signed with the owners of TBS. And you know who they are. Not the government, Molson, Labatt, and Sleeman, and TBS themselves. TBS, that's the beer store. It outlines a bunch of details that haven't really made it into the media outlets yet, including additional costs the government will cover for the big multinational beverage companies, timelines for an interim period, and the end of the Master Framework Agreement. So it outlines the dates for all that, and sections on the Ontario Deposit Return Program. That's some interesting reading. In cooler news, the Ontario Craft Brewers recently held their annual general meeting at Left Field Brewery, actually the brew pub, sorry, not the brewery, and the attendance was simply amazing. Breweries from all over the province showed up to participate in great conversation about the industry and to vote in some new board members. So there was a big vote, and congratulations to Jason Fisher of Indie Ale House. Big Loudmouth finally gets a seat on the board, being voted in for the first time, and to Brad Clifford for securing another term. They're both in the 0 to 5,000 hect category, and they join Jeff Dornan from All or Nothing, and who's also the chair of the OCB, and Josh Graham from Silversmith. They represent that size of the category. And in the 5 to 15 hect categories, congratulations to Josh McJanet of Dominion City. He won a board seat as well. He joins Matt Giffen of Bench and Mandy Murphy of Left Field. And to end this segment, we have some great news to share at GLB. You ready for this? We are happy to welcome Rob Mora to the team as our new on-premise sales manager. Rob, who needs little to no introduction in this industry, has previously rocked the licensee sales game with Bo's All Natural and Beyond the Pale, respectively. Stay tuned for a special episode of Between Two Fermenters next week as we sit down to introduce you to Mora. And that's it. That's all, folks. Episode 11 with Jenn Tamse, the honorary knight of Beertown, or Belgian brewers, has moved from the mash tun to the fermenters. I hope that you enjoyed the conversation with Jenn and appreciate all the work she does highlighting Ontario craft beer at all those 10 locations, soon to be 12. I hope you'll make a note to visit one of their, like I said, 10 locations sometime soon. Today's episode was fueled by the crushable Sunnyside Session IPA for me and Absacker for Jenn, which you can find all over Ontario, Sunnyside, at the beer store, LCBO grocery stores, and online at greatlakesbeershop.ca. You can visit the brewery at 30 Queen Elizabeth Boulevard in Etobicoke or grab some delicious eats and fresh pours at our brew pub at 11 Lower Jarvis in Toronto. If you have any content you'd love to hear us discuss on the show or just want to tell us what you're drinking, drop us a line at podcast@greatlakesbeer.com. Until next time, please remember to keep tipping your glass of fresh GLB in the right direction. Supporting local never tasted so good.
To learn more about what's happening at Great Lakes Brewery, visit greatlakesbeer.com and subscribe to our weekly newsletter or follow Great Lakes Beer on your favorite social media platforms.